to you, George.
Thank you very much, Emma. Hi everyone. For those of you who I've not spoken to, my name's George and I run a property development company called Black Oak. I've come here today to talk on confidence, and you've probably all sat there thinking, why the hell have they sent a glorified builder to talk to us about confidence? Well, over the next 20 minutes or so, that should become more apparent. I'll just put the monitor up a bit. Okay, so the first area I want to really focus on is natural confidence. So I'm sure we've all met people in our lives who are kind of naturally confident. The ones that really stand out to me, the main one that stands out to me, someone like Richard Branson. So everyone, I'm getting a few nods already, would people agree that he's a fairly naturally confident guy? Yeah? Can anyone else name someone else? So think of sporting people, actors, generally high profile people. Yeah, go on. Who, sorry? Lewis Hamilton, brilliant example. Anyone else?
Matt Baker.
Matt Baker, yeah. Yeah, so they're generally the kind of people who've really made it very high in their chosen career or path. Now, they've actually done some scientific research into natural confidence, how I'm not quite sure. They've ascertained that less than 0.1% of the population are born with natural confidence. So that's less than 1 in 1,000 people is born with natural confidence. Now, I was extremely fortunate in the lottery that is life, and I was born with it to a certain extent. So what I want to do over the next 20 minutes or so, I want to share with you some of the strategies that I just kind of do naturally, and hopefully you can pick a few bits up along the way. Now, who here was at the last Hi Ho and Co event at Blackdown Shepherd Huts? Raise your hand. Come on, be confident. That's good. Good proportion of the room. Yes, we know you were there, Adam. We are. Okay, so when you're at Blackdown Shepherd Huts, no doubt they probably give you a tour of the workshop. Yeah, got to have a look around. It's quite impressive, isn't it? What they've got there. Did you get to see the lift that goes down into the floor and stuff like that? Yeah. So I expect they took you around the huts as well. Yeah. So the huts are quite impressive themselves, aren't they? Okay, so cousin Will and I, we set up Blackdown back in 2011, and there was already quite an established market there at the time with the Shepherd Huts. There was a few kind of leading brands, and basically Will and I, we weren't business owners. We were literally just two builders. We were the guys that turned up to your house, create a load of noise and dust, and just hopefully let things looking pretty. But what helped us separate ourselves from the crowd was our confidence. It was our confidence in our ability with our work. It was our confidence to come into the market with a new brand. It was confidence in the fact that neither of us came from money. A lot of these companies were well established, had big bankrolls behind them. Will and I didn't have that. We had $2,000 each when we started that company. When I left in 2015, less than 5 years after we started, we were turning over £1 million a year and we were in zero debt. So hopefully you can kind of see where I'm going with the confidence thing. Making sense so far? Okay, so one of my favourite life analogies is surfing, because surfing is a lot like life. Any surfers in the room? Yeah, we've got a few of you. It's harder than it looks, isn't it? Yeah, much harder than it looks. Okay, so this photo was taken in one of my favourite places, just off the island of Lombok in Indonesia. Not a massive day, it's probably about head high. When like a big day there, it's kind of like twice the height of head, so I don't know, up by that picture somewhere. Nobody wants to be sat on the boat taking photos, so therefore you don't get many photos on those days. But what happens when you're out there on a big day? If you do not catch the wave perfectly, it will pick you up. It will smash you down through the water, into the reef, it will pull you back up again, it will let you think you're going to get a little bit of oxygen, and then it'll put you back down again, and it'll bounce you off the reef, and it'll pull you, and it's called a washing machine effect, because it does that with you. And at some stage, if you can just kind of relax, like you can relax in that situation, at some stage, it will spit you out the other end. So it's a lot like life, because life has a habit of kind of chewing us up sometimes, doesn't it? Anyone been in that situation? Kind of picked up, put down, picked up, put down. So it's when you get spat out at the other end. And it's about having the confidence to look back and go, okay, let's do that again. Because it's not pleasant at the time, but in order to get the good bit, in order to get the fun bit, riding the wave, you've got to paddle back out through it. And to me, that just reminds me, it's just a great analogy for life. So I've done a bit of boxing in my time, and the one thing I've noticed about boxing, when you're doing, it applies to any competition really, whether it's boxing, golf, basketball, equestrian, cross country, it's not the time that you're doing it. So in boxing, if you're doing a competition, essentially you have 8 minutes. You're in the ring for 3 2-minute rounds and 2 1-minute breaks. It's 8 minutes, it's not that long. That bell goes, it's going on, whether you like it or not, it's happening. That's not the hard bit. The hard bit is the weeks, the days, the hours, the months that run up to it. That's the challenging bit. Because you're then playing the mental game. And it's not allowing that negative voice to come into your head. It's not allowing that negative talk. And I've seen so many really, really phenomenally talented athletes who can't do competitions, who'd love to, but they can't handle the pressure building up to it. So it's that confidence. It's confidence in your training. It's confidence in your ability. It's confidence in your capacity to not fold under pressure. And that's kind of what makes a difference. So, jumping out of aeroplanes, also known as skydiving. Anyone here done a skydive? Good fun? Yeah. Alan looks like he wants to do one. So, with skydiving, it's generally done at what's called a drop zone, a little airfield somewhere. And the way they sort it out, they have all the planes that take off, they're called loads. So for example, you're on load 15, you'll hear over a tannoy system, on the drop zone, you will hear load 15, 20-minute call. What that means, in 20 minutes time, that aeroplane is taking off and you need to be on it. So what that means, you really, by that stage, if you haven't already, you really need to start thinking about maybe having a chat with all the people you're jumping out with and seeing like who's going in the door, who's going outside the door, what transitions you're doing, where everyone's place is going to be, what altitude you're separating at. And you probably might also want to think about packing your parachute, which is kind of handy. Next thing you'll hear, load 15, 10-minute call. Yep, you guessed it, that means 10 minutes time, that plane is taking off. By this stage, if you haven't already, you might probably want to think about going to the toilet if you think you're going to need it, and that does happen a lot. And you probably also want to think about packing your parachute if it's not already done. Next thing you'll hear, load 15, 5-minute call. By this stage, you really need to have done all the above and spoke to everyone and been to the toilet. And at this stage, if you have not packed your parachute, you seriously need to think about it because your life does kind of depend on it. Now, whilst packing a parachute, it's not really the sort of thing you want to rush. And it's not really, you know, it takes a minute or two to pack a parachute. And I've been in that situation. I've been there with a 5-minute call and a parachute laid out in front of me, and it was that confidence. It was the confidence in my ability to pack. It was the confidence in keeping my calm under pressure. That's what helped me see through those situations. Now, Mrs. Warren here tells me that everyone likes a bit of a test. So, what I'd like to do is see who out of you lovely lot has been paying attention. Because I just made one of these things up. Any guesses?
Skydiving's not a good idea. Throwing yourself out the window.
Skydiving?
Not good.
You put clean pants on.
Someone else.
Okay, so who thinks I made the skydiving up? Raise your hand. Yeah, there's a few there. Okay, who thinks I made the boxing up? 1, 2, 3, 4. Few. I've got about 7 halves here. Okay, who thinks I made the surfing up? Yeah, about the same. I'm afraid you're all wrong. The bit I made up is natural confidence. Absolute load of bollocks. Confidence is a learned behaviour. A learned behaviour can be learned by anyone at any time. Does the person in that video, in that photo, look particularly confident? So I'll tell you what, they're not. That was me at the age of 22 years old. You can see the date there. 14th of January 2005. I'd just been remanded in Exeter prison for attempted armed robbery on a post office. The reason I got to that situation is because I was a heroin and crack addict. I was absolutely bang at it, like, I don't know exactly, still don't really keep count, but 100 to 200 pounds worth of heroin and crack every day. The lead up to this event involved 2 failed suicide attempts. There was a 3rd one that night. Now obviously, confidence doesn't take you to that place. What takes you to that place is low self-esteem, low self-worth, self-hatred, disconnection from your family, disconnection from your friends, disconnection from your job, and disconnection from society. Now, I could do a whole talk on addiction, but that's not what we're here for. And obviously I've given like really extreme examples here, and I've done that intentionally. I've done that to highlight the fact of what I'm talking about. So, whilst I was in prison, I had quite a bit of time on my hands. And I started to read a little bit. So, a guy came up to me one day and he said, "Have a go at this book, I reckon you really like it." I wasn't a massive reader at the time. It's called The Elephant and the Twig by a guy called Jeff Thompson. And this book just absolutely right place, right time for me. The basic premise of this book is that if you get a little elephant, like cute little baby elephant, like cute little baby elephant ears and cute little baby elephant nose. That was my elephant impression, by the way. Just in case anyone wondered.
Well, that's the thing.
So if you get a cute little baby elephant and you get a bit of rope, tie it to its leg, you tie that bit of rope to a small tree or a twig, that elephant, cute little baby elephant, will try and run away, but it won't be able to because it's tied up. So he'll try and he'll try and he'll try, and eventually he'll give up because he can't go anywhere. Now that's called learned helplessness. So what happens as this cute little baby elephant grows up and gets bigger, he ends up getting like real big, like 2 ton big. So what do you think would happen if you got a 2 ton elephant and tied it to a little twig? What do you think would happen if that elephant walked off? What would happen to the twig? Yeah, it'd just pull out, wouldn't it? That doesn't happen. Because that elephant has experienced learned helplessness. So you get that elephant, you tie it to the little twig, and it just sits there. So he's given up. He's broken. And this happens all the time. I see it so often when people come to me and they say, "Oh, there's no point leaving my crappy abusive relationship because it will just happen again. There's no point in me asking for a pay rise, so my boss will never give me one. There's no point in me starting my own business because people like me don't start businesses." This is learned helplessness. So, in this book, Jeff made another point, and this is the bit, if you take anything away from today, I'd really like you to take this away, because this has just been a massive part of my transition. So Jeff said in this book, start paying attention to how people respond when you ask them how they are today. Because at least 9 out of 10 people will turn around and go, yeah, not bad. And what someone's saying on a subliminal level, when they say not bad, they're saying they're not good either. Because the subconscious mind doesn't pick up on don'ts and can'ts and won'ts. So your subconscious, all that hears is when you say, how are you today? All it hears is bad. It's that language. So I did a little experiment. Now keep in mind, I was in Dartmoor prison, fairly rough prison as prisons go. I was serving a 3.5-year sentence. I was surrounded by criminals, and people would come up to me and go, all right, how are you today? I go, I'm absolutely fucking fantastic. They're like, what? I said, well, what's not to like? I've got a roof over my head. I get free, all right, fairly crap, but I get 3 meals a day. All I've got to do is walk downstairs and it's served up for me. I leave my washing outside my door on a Wednesday. Little man picks it up and brings it back on a Thursday. I've got like an absolutely amazing gym facility. I mean, Dartmoor gym is, I've not been in a gym like it. It is phenomenal. I can use that 5-6 days a week. What is not to like? Second fold compounded to me because when I left for prison, I left all the, what I call heavy hard drugs behind me, but I carried on like drinking and doing cocaine. It's like everyone does that, right? But 4 years later, internally I was in the same place. I was miserable, I was unhappy, so I ended up going to rehab. And I did a 28-day program. On my last day, the counsellor come up to me and have like a little chat and stuff, and he says, I really highly recommend you do some CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy. And it's basically a form of like a psychoanalytical therapy. For me, it doesn't work that great. I've done a lot of therapy and all sorts. Some people it works fantastic, but over 5 sessions, the bit that really stood out to me, I sat there with this woman chatting away, and I said, yeah, but the thing is, I'm not that confident. She went, whoa, stop right there. I said, I want you to change one part about what you've just said. I said, what's that? He said, rather than saying I'm not, change that to I used to. I thought, well, what difference is that going to make? I thought, I've got nothing to lose, so I'll run with it. So when I was talking to people, I started to say, well, yeah, the thing is, I used to not be very confident. Now what that does, that then gives them the impression, because I'm talking in past tense, that I'm now confident. Because they think that I'm confident, they treat me like I'm confident. Because they treat me like I'm confident, I start to behave like I'm confident. Once I've started behaving like I'm confident, yeah, you guessed it, I am then confident. Very subtle, really subtle, and it's not a big thing, and a lot of people overlook it because it's so small. But literally, it is. If you take one thing away from today, please take this. To the extent that people would walk up to me and they go, yeah, but it's all right for you because you're really confident. And I'm just like, oh. So the next 2 things aren't as big as this, but they're just little things that I found quite helpful, and hopefully someone else gets something from it.